welcome to Bloomberg Women Mean Business. Today I have with me Miss Aruna Jayanthi. It's a pleasure to have her. She's of course the Chief Executive Officer of Capgemini India. She has held multiple positions and she has large responsibilities across all business units. Ms. Jayanthi, it is such a pleasure to have you on Bloomberg Women Mean Business. The first question I have for you is, how do you spot good talent?
It depends at what level. Okay, I think you have to start right at the campuses, go out there, look for them, and then at the mid level. But what I really focus on is to say, look, it's not about technology. It's not about being a good computer science graduate. At the end of the day, it's all about knowing how you can apply technology to business. So it's a bigger understanding of how businesses work, what is it that customers want, and so on. So it's really finding talent which can relate technology to business. I'm not looking for nerds.
You're not looking for nerds.
I'm not looking for nerds.
But if the nerds can connect with the clients,
yeah,
right?
It's great to have nerds. I mean, you need all. I'm not being negative in any way. I think you need all kinds of people. So I think you need a mix of solid technology people who can play with it and create cool new stuff. But more than that, I think we're looking for people who can really understand business and today's needs and say, this is what technology can do for you.
So where does that understanding come? Because there's a lot of hiring that happens on a younger level, and that talent is eventually nurtured. But this very important idea that you're talking about, which is bringing those solutions to the clients, understanding your clients, building those relationships, how does that evolve together with technological skills?
Yeah, that's why I said at a junior level it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
At junior level you're just looking for raw talent, and then you look for certain basic qualities, analytical capabilities and so on. But I'm talking more at the mid and the mid-level and senior level, where they would have already worked for 3 or 4 years, and then you start to look at, what is their experience and what have they learned? How are they applying it to business? So I think you can readily spot that. And second is I'm always suspicious of, when somebody is very wedded to a single technology, because technology comes and goes. Okay? At the end of the day, it's not about a technology. It's about really, can you understand beyond that and see what it can do for you? So, different ways. But
you have to deal with very diverse clients, and one of the challenges they of course have is to really change their business models, right? Digitize their own business models themselves. So how do you define a recipe for success in this digital era for a company?
The many, okay, and not all are to do with from a technology or a service provider perspective. I mean, if I look at it from a customer's perspective, I think they first need to be clear on what is the business model and what are they doing. Technology is only an enabler at the end of the day. So they need to be clear on what it is. It needs to be largely top down. It's not a one-off project that they are executing, saying, okay, I'm going to digitize something else. Okay, I'm going to create a website that's cool. I'm going to do an e-commerce thing. No, that doesn't work always. I mean, that'll work in the short term, but what's more important is how does it fit into the business? And often you find that very successful businesses which have used, have transformed themselves using digital media, they are the ones where the business strategy is very, very tightly tied into their digital and the technology strategy. Okay, and that's where we see success.
So there's got to be a very sort of cohesive vision when it comes to actually...
Absolutely. Because often what you'd find is that to make it work, they actually have to change the way that their business itself works. So for example, if you're doing something with customer experience, it's not about creating a cool site and then, offering something different to customers. It's more to do with then, how are you using that? Are you personalizing that channel? Are you promoting your products in a different way? Are you reacting to them faster and in a different way? So it really depends on, it starts even with training your own people. So it's a shift inside and outside the organization.
And isn't that's a very large process that takes place?
It's a very large process, but if you see organizations which have very successfully done it, it's a big picture.
So how long does it take to get to the big picture? Because you talk about this idea of a big picture, right? Always have the big picture, have that vision, go for the execution. What is a typical cycle like with the business in terms of transformation?
I mean, it could be a couple of years at least, or even 3 years, but then you don't execute it all in one go. You have that big direction, and then you say, okay, I'm going to, you can't wait for 2 years to launch something new. So you start releasing it and then going for it in 3 months or 6 month, milestones. But eventually, the big picture of how technology will transform, let's say, your bank or your retail business, that's the key.
And how are you finding Indian businesses in terms of adaptation towards change? Do you find some correlation between, say, how long a business has been up and running and some kind of resistance that you see coming in on certain levels on change? I just want to understand what it's like, because your client base is vast. You yourself have had so many different experiences in this environment. Tell me a little bit more about your observations in terms of the landscape here.
In any country, and it's not just in India, and there are two kinds of companies. One which recognize the change and then are moving rapidly with it. It's not to do with how old or new the company is.
Sure.
It's really how they see the world and how rapidly they're willing to change. And what I find is in India, the companies which are more global, who are actually, let's say, facing more competitive pressure globally, will change faster because they see it. They're not competing just locally in India, right? It's a global landscape, and what they do and how they react, the products they sell, how they serve their customers, all needs to be at a global level. Okay, so you see a distinct difference between those, whereas a local one might be able to move and can afford to move much more slowly
than the ones that are out there on the global arena. We're taking a short break right now on Bloomberg Women Mean Business, and we're going to be back in just a minute. Welcome back to Bloomberg Women Mean Business. Today I have the pleasure of having Ms. Aruna Jayanthi in the studios with me. Ms. Jayanthi, we were talking about the evolution of companies and how the ones perhaps that have to compete on a much more global level have to change faster versus the ones who can afford to sort of change at a slower pace. What we've seen happening abroad is that we've seen a lot of two sort of trajectories when it comes to startups, right? One is that the startups, the successful ones are great, and then the larger companies come in and sort of buy them over, and then the rest is whatever it is. The other one is that some of these startups start chipping into the businesses or threatening the larger established players, and that's the kind of disruption you see. What can you tell me about that particular equation in India?
First of all, I think the startup situation in India is quite nascent. I mean, you see a lot of e-commerce companies and so on, but otherwise, I think it's reasonably nascent. And if I look at, let's say, technology startups who are creating new stuff, a lot of it is, the one thing that they lack is access to customers. Okay, so they have created nice stuff, but then they're really missing that connection to a customer base. So actually what I think is working in India right now is a lot of the large established players are actually working closely with the startups. So it's a good ecosystem. I don't see it much as competition as I see more of collaboration actually now. And a lot of the large companies are encouraging startups, are investing in startups, are working with them, and it's a win-win for everybody. So large companies get access to some of the new thinking and new stuff, and the startups get access to
And how's that
experience.
process of identification happening? What sort of platforms is that?
There are multiple platforms. For example, NASSCOM has provided a platform. I think they've started something called as the 10K startup a couple of years ago. They curate a whole lot of startups and then set up a startup garage. So, and then they so if I go to them and say, look, I'm interested in something like this, and then most likely they will find me 2 startups which are doing that work, and then of course the rest is left to me to do what I want. I'm saying as a customer, let's say as a company that's based abroad, as an auto manufacturer, I come here and say I want to know who's working in telematics.
Right.
Show it to me, and then they will do it.
And they'll do it for you.
So but at this stage, I think it's still too
So
early.
it's really early. And what's the kind of potential you see? Because I just want to get an idea from a person like you who's really worked, I think the kind of experience you have in this particular sector, and given what you do, where are we really when it comes to tech, when it comes to branding? What is it all about? Are we delusional? Are we talented? What are we, as a country, where are we at this stage?
Oh gosh, it's
a tough one. Okay.
I hate to say we're delusional, but I think we are optimistic. Okay,
That's a nice word.
so I think As I said, it's very, very early stage. Today, India is still largely an IT services play. Okay, so we execute this. We are not creating new stuff. There's very little product creation. Of course, there is some. I mean, it's a relative game. So for us to really look at, do we have a Microsoft, which is the comparison? Do we have a Google? Do we have Amazon? That will still take time. Okay, but I think we are in a good way there. So I'm an eternal optimist.
How important is it to be the original innovator versus the services? I mean, you could be great at what you do. I've seen a slew of articles really coming out on why it's important for a country to innovate itself and where that creation should really be coming out of us. Is that really that important?
I think it's extremely important.
Okay.
Absolutely important, because I think there's a limit to the services play. Services play is replicable. There can be
anyone can
anybody can do it, right?
Yeah.
So it's just and then there's always price pressure. There's so many different things. It's a competitive market. The services play can come, can go. I'm not saying it's going anywhere for India, but I'm just saying that in general, services play has its limitations. As a nation, if you have to earn multiples of revenues, if you have to really make it big, there needs to be an innovation and a product play. That's essential.
So where is that going to start?
I think it started.
No, I'm asking you, is it university levels? I mean, I want to know where are the hubs where this kind of stuff is going to come out of?
It has to start at university level. It has to start outside of the universities. There needs to be an ecosystem with venture capitalists, with large corporations, with universities. We need to increase the level of research that is done at universities, the collaboration of academia and corporate. So it's not one answer for everything. There needs to be a whole ecosystem that needs to develop, but definitely needs to start at the university level.
I'm going to come back to my question about talent, because I think at the core of what you do and what we're talking about here is talent and identification of skills. How are you perceiving the kind of talent that you're seeing these days? And I'm going to then narrow that down to a more technical question, which is about what female presence in technology, I'm not saying women in the workforce, how is that kind of, is that changing something? Is that changing leadership? Is that changing programming, consultancy? But let me go back to talent. What are you seeing out of the kids that sort of apply to Capgemini these days? You get thousands of applications. What do you see a lot of? And what would you like to see more of?
What I see is very, very smart kids, good, talented people, but very impatient. And they look at, okay, what can I do in the next year?
How do I make it rich?
How do I make it rich? How do I make it big? Some are entrepreneurs, some are, service oriented, but whatever it is, they are all in a big tearing hurry,
Right.
And sometimes I think...
Is that the world we live in, or is that just...
I wish I could answer that one, but maybe it's a combination of everything.
Yeah, but maybe some things don't change. Maybe you need to really kind of go there and do what you need to, right?
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but then at the end of the day, you think, you need some patience to make some things work. You need to go through a couple of failures before you see success. So I think what I see is that a little bit of that patience that's lacking. But on the other hand, it's great to have guys who are ambitious and want to make it big.
And I was just looking at one of your talks, and one was a TED talk that you'd conducted, in which you were talking about armchair visionaries versus the guys who actually go out there and execute with conviction.
Yeah.
That personality versus this impatient person who wants to just get to the top. I mean, can you tell the difference very quickly between those people?
I think you can tell the difference. There's the people who are in there for the long haul, who get into the detail, versus people who are skimming on the surface of it, just want to quickly move on.
Yeah.
Who change jobs for, let's say, somebody's giving them a 40% increase or a 50%.
Those kind of, yeah.
Those kinds versus. Yeah. You can quickly make out in a...
You can.
I think any HR team...
I think HR teams can make out,
okay.
Yeah. Just to go back to where we are in terms of India and how you think one can sort of have more really come out of the country, given what we've been seeing, in the global environment, the kind of shifts we're seeing in businesses as well. I'd like to understand how closely tech is really involved with these larger trends that we're seeing right now. whether it's the economies, whether what's happening in the emerging economies, or just give me an idea. Is technology something that kind of just runs on its own and it becomes a solution, especially in troubled times? Or what happens there?
One of the things a nation needs is literacy. I think you see literacy levels go up. It improves. There's so much that social change can happen to it, and I think that's where really in India technology can play a big role. I mean, we don't have enough classrooms, we don't have enough teachers, we don't have. I mean, our country is so vast, and the reach today is so limited. I think technology can play a big role, really at the grassroots and starting to make a difference in education, in even basic literacy, in taking healthcare to people, and taking, So I do believe in the whole dream and vision of digital India. Okay, we just need to execute on it. But I do believe technology can make a big difference to this country.
Okay, we are going to have to hold on to our thoughts because we're taking another short break right here on Bloomberg Women Mean Business. Welcome back to Bloomberg Women Mean Business. How do you think leadership styles, a profile which is so linked to building relationships, to understanding your workforce, do you think being a woman kind of helps in that matter? Is there something that we bring differently to the table? Or I don't know, I just want to get an idea in terms of leadership styles. About gender? Is it about leadership styles, personalities? What is it?
I think it's very individual specific.
Correct.
I hate to say. I mean, the easy answer is to say women are more, have more empathy, can relate better to people.
I don't think women have more empathy. I don't have any more empathy. None. In fact, I think I'm no.
Good for you. I'm glad you're bold and stating that.
Yeah.
But that's why I said, there's so many stereotypes. I just feel uncomfortable saying that women have a different quality.
It's just who you are.
It's just who you are. It's like, to me, the whole leadership is completely delinked from gender.
So it's your experiences. It's okay. Has anyone ever called you tough?
I don't know. If they do, they don't tell me.
They don't tell you on your face. Okay. I want to understand from you how you think more leadership can be built, especially within the tech the tech sector. When it comes to women as well. And the reason I'm asking is because I think if you're good, you're good. But a lot of people don't necessarily go through the whole cycle of getting to the top. It's not that easy for them. So what are some really important things to keep in mind?
In the tech sector, I think it's very important. First of all, it's a 24/7 job. Okay, and I think anybody who wants to really take on bigger responsibility needs to be aware of that and be prepared for that. Second is connecting to customers and being really understanding businesses, what I was saying earlier on, is extremely important. It's not about, for me, the fundamental premise of the industry is it's not about technology, even though we're a tech industry. It's about business. It's about people, it's about business. And the ability to relate to business and to customers is, to me, extremely important. Okay. Number 3 is to accept that, technology is changing every day and you don't know everything. Okay. To accept that as a boss you know little and you have to depend on the young college grad who's coming out, who's probably 30 years younger to you, is absolutely key. I think the whole environment of learning every day, relating to customers, learning from customers, being 24/7, I think those are critical characteristics.
I want to ask you a basic question, which is how do you keep learning every day?
Learning, Fatima, is not just by reading something. Learning is when you talk to people, right? I talk to customers, I'm talking to analysts, I'm talking to our partners, I'm talking to startups. So when you talk to these guys, you see what's happening in the industry, right? So learning is also
plugging in
and getting to know what's going on, what's the latest, where is the industry changing, having your hand on the pulse of the industry to say, hey, look, and also applying it to say, okay, I see it, putting two and two together. I see a pattern here, I see a pattern there. How do these two come together, and what is then therefore the what's the next wave? What does it mean?
So what's the next wave? I mean, I'm thinking those time windows are quite short when it comes to cool things that are happening in this space. What are the things that are kind of like exciting you at the moment?
Automation's exciting. So much that I was discussing with one of the consulting firms a couple of months ago, saying that, really, do we need to increase talent. I think maybe it's time to look at how much talent do we really need if we put robotics everywhere. What's the role of robotics in this industry?
And you're right.
What's the level of growth? So there is lots of exciting things, and we don't have the answers to everything today.
So you're still looking at stuff.
We're still looking at stuff.
Just a little bit more about what excites you. I'm very curious. What are the kind of things that you are interested in besides when you're at work? I mean, what do you do? Do you like music? Do you like reading? I understand you have a young daughter who keeps you on your toes as well, but a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, I like reading, I like music, I like to spend time with my daughter, but most of all I'm looking for adventure. I love it. So go jump off a cliff with
You do that?
I did that, go paragliding, and
did you do it again and again, or did you do it once?
I did it. No, I did it again and again.
Really?
But I didn't have time to really perfect it. So I still have to go back and take lessons and be able to take those big jumps.
So is it true that once you've done something like that, then you want to do something that's similar in terms of the adrenaline, but in a different space? Or
no, it's about pushing yourself, right, to do things and gaining new experiences. But I have to tell you, I chickened out of bungee jumping.
No, that was my next question. Did you bungee jump? Was the paragliding first and then the bungee jumping?
Paragliding was first, and then I went bungee jumping, but I stood there on the bridge and said, gee, I can't do this.
Where was this? How high was it?
So this was, the lady in front of me on the bridge started crying and froze, and then she just spooked me, and I couldn't do it after that. She freaked me out. But otherwise, I was all set to go. But I'll do it someday, So it's all about, finding new adventures in life, and it's not just about physical adventure,
Right.
It's also about reading, discovering music, new kinds of things. So I'm
Have you always been like this? Have you always been someone who likes that, just taking up challenges, doing really fun stuff?
I've always been like that.
Yeah?
Always.
None of that is changing, right?
No.
Just very quickly, we've kind of talked about the business, we've talked about you. Given the kind of responsibilities you have, what are your key priorities in the next year? What are some of the things that you're really going to be focusing on when it comes to Capgemini India and the footprint it has in terms of the larger organization?
Three things. One is, the integration with iGate. That's going to be, quite center stage for us for the next few months. Second is to really drive us much more into the digital world. Clearly, the mix that we have between, the legacy type of work and digital, we need to shift that much more rapidly. So building that capability and to, much more than what we have today. That's number two. And number three is really start building much more the leadership talent that we have, for a much more global business.
All right.
Three things.
So the very large responsibilities that you're shouldering. Well, it's been a real pleasure having you right here on Bloomberg Women Mean Business. Thank you so much for having come in to the show. Programming continues right here on Bloomberg TV India.